When Sienna Hart walked into that glittering ballroom, she had no idea the night would end with the city's most dangerous man claiming her as his wife in front of 300 witnesses. What started as public humiliation became something far more dangerous, a lie that would drag her into a world of power, violence, and a love she never asked for but couldn't escape. If you want to see how a single moment can rewrite your entire life, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The chandelier overhead was ridiculous. Sienna decided that first, before anything else went wrong. Thousands of crystals throwing light everywhere like the room needed to prove how much money it could waste on a Tuesday night. She stood near the bar, holding a glass of champagne she hadn't asked for and wouldn't drink, watching women in gowns that cost more than her yearly rent glide past without seeing her. She shouldn't be here. Nobody wanted her here, least of all herself. "You actually wore that?" Sienna didn't turn around. She recognized Monica's voice, sharp, delighted, the tone of someone who'd found exactly what they were looking for. Monica worked 2 desks over at the firm, spent most of her time forwarding emails and taking credit for other people's work, and had been waiting months for an opportunity like this. "It's a dress," Sienna said quietly. "It's a cocktail dress at a charity gala." Monica circled around, her emerald gown rustling with theatrical sympathy. 2 other women from the office flanked her, already smirking. "Did you not get the email about dress code? Or did you just not care?" Sienna had gotten the email. She'd also gotten the news that her student loan payment was doubling next month, that her landlord was raising rent, and that her mother's medical bills weren't going to pay themselves. The black dress she wore was nice, the nicest thing she owned. She'd bought it 3 years ago for a wedding and had been saving it for something special. Apparently, this wasn't special enough. "I think it's fine," Sienna said. "Oh, honey, no." Monica touched her arm with fingernails like tiny daggers. "This is the Metropolitan Society Gala. There are senators here, the governor, people who actually matter." She lowered her voice to a stage whisper. "You look like you're here to serve drinks." The women laughed. It was a practiced sound, synchronized and cruel. Sienna felt heat crawl up her neck. She wanted to say something cutting, something that would shut them down and let her walk away with dignity. But her mind went blank the way it always did in moments like this. And all she could manage was, "I should probably go." "Oh, don't leave on our account," Monica said brightly. "I'm sure Mr. Hendricks would be so disappointed if his favorite assistant missed the whole event. He specifically told you to come, didn't he?" He had. Richard Hendricks, senior partner at the law firm where Sienna worked as a paralegal, had sent her an email at 4 in the afternoon telling her attendance was mandatory. Not requested, mandatory. He'd framed it as an opportunity, a chance to network, to be seen. What he'd meant was that he needed someone to handle the grunt work, picking up his dry cleaning on the way, making sure his wife's table setting was perfect, running interference if any clients got too drunk. Sienna had done all of it. She was good at being invisible, at making other people's lives easier while her own stayed small and forgettable. "I'm sure he's looking for you right now," one of the other women said, glancing around the ballroom with exaggerated concern. "You wouldn't want to disappoint him." "Actually," Monica's eyes lit up. "There he is, Mr. Hendricks." She raised her voice, waving across the room. "We found Sienna." Sienna's stomach dropped. Richard Hendricks was 62, silver-haired, and excellent at making people feel like they owed him something. He turned at the sound of his name, his expression already annoyed before he spotted her. When he did, the annoyance deepened into something sharper. He crossed the room in long strides, his wife trailing behind him in a gown that probably cost more than Sienna's car. "Sienna," he didn't smile. "I've been looking for you." "I'm sorry, Mr. Hendricks. You were supposed to confirm the auction items an hour ago. I've had 3 people ask me about lot numbers, and I had no idea what they were talking about." Sienna blinked. "You didn't ask me to confirm auction items." "I sent you an email." "I didn't receive—" "Check your phone." She pulled it from her small clutch, hands unsteady. There was no email. She scrolled through her inbox twice to be sure, then looked up at him, trying to keep her voice level. "There's nothing here. Then you deleted it." His tone allowed no argument. "This is exactly the kind of carelessness I've been concerned about." I didn't delete anything. I checked my email before I left. Clearly not thoroughly enough. He glanced at Monica and the others, who were watching with barely concealed glee. This is what happens when people don't take their responsibilities seriously. You represent the firm tonight, Sienna. Do you understand that? Every mistake you make reflects on me. Her face burned. She wanted to defend herself, to point out that he'd never mentioned auction items, that this was a setup, that he was doing this because he could. But Richard Hendricks was a senior partner and she was a paralegal who needed her job. So she said, "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix the problem." He turned to his wife. "Darling, didn't I say this was a mistake? Bringing junior staff to these events?" Mrs. Hendricks smiled thinly. "You did. Maybe next year we'll set a clearer standard." He looked back at Sienna, his voice loud enough to carry. Image matters at these things. Professionalism, attention to detail. If you can't manage that, perhaps you're better suited to tasks that don't require public visibility. Someone nearby laughed softly. Sienna didn't look to see who. She stood there holding her cheap champagne glass, wearing her too casual dress, while her boss dismantled her in front of colleagues and strangers. The chandelier kept throwing light everywhere. The string quartet played something elegant and forgettable. Nobody stepped in to help. This was her life. Small, dismissible, a punching bag for people who needed someone beneath them. "Excuse me." The voice came from behind her, low, calm, and completely unfamiliar. Everyone turned. The man standing there was tall, dark-haired, and dressed in a tuxedo that fit him like it had been built around his frame. He wasn't classically handsome. His face was too sharp for that, all angles and intensity, but he had the kind of presence that made the space around him feel smaller. Sienna had never seen him before. She was certain of that. You didn't forget a man who looked like he could break you in half without changing expression. "I'm sorry," Richard said, his tone shifting into something friendlier, more deferential. "Can I help you?" The man ignored him entirely, his eyes, dark, unreadable, locked on Sienna. "There you are," he said. Sienna opened her mouth, confused. He stepped forward and took her hand. His grip was warm, firm, and completely confident. "I've been looking everywhere for you." She stared at him. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong—" "Darling." He said it quietly, but the word cut through every other sound in the room. "We talked about this." Her brain stuttered. "Darling." He turned to Richard, still holding Sienna's hand. "I hope my wife hasn't been too much trouble." The silence that followed was absolute. Monica's mouth fell open. Mrs. Hendricks actually took a step back. Richard looked like someone had just told him the building was on fire, but he couldn't see the flames. "Your wife?" Richard repeated. The man smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Yes, my wife." Sienna's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She should say something, correct him, explain that this was a mistake. But his hand was around hers, steady and unyielding, and for the first time all night, she didn't feel like she was drowning. "I'm Luca Moretti," the man said. The name landed like a grenade. Sienna didn't follow society news or business gossip, but even she knew that name. Luca Moretti. Developer, investor, the man who'd bought half the waterfront last year and turned it into something that made the city's skyline look different. People spoke about him the way they spoke about hurricanes, with respect and distance. Richard's face went pale. "Mr. Moretti, I had no idea. I didn't realize that Sienna was my wife." Luca's voice was pleasant, conversational. "Most people don't. We prefer to keep our private life private." "Of course. Of course." Richard was sweating now. "I apologize if I said anything. You were saying something about professionalism." Luca's gaze was steady. "And public visibility. I'm sure you were." Luca turned to Sienna, his expression softening in a way that felt dangerously convincing. "Are you ready to go?" She should say no. She should pull her hand away and tell everyone this was insane. But Richard Hendricks was still standing there, looking like his entire world had just tilted sideways, and Monica's smug smile had evaporated into something close to panic. Sienna met Luca Moretti's eyes and made a choice. "Yes," she said. He led her away from the group without another word. She could feel everyone watching, not just Richard and Monica, but half the ballroom. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. People turned to stare. By the time they reached the edge of the room, Sienna was certain the entire gala knew her name. Luca didn't stop until they were in a quieter corner, partially hidden by an oversized floral arrangement that probably cost more than her rent. He released her hand. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "That was inappropriate." Sienna stared at him. "Inappropriate? I shouldn't have interfered, but I saw what was happening and I—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "I don't like watching people get humiliated for entertainment." She didn't know what to say to that. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together to hide it. "You didn't have to do that," she said finally. "I know. Everyone thinks I'm your wife now." "Yes, I'm not. I know that too." He studied her face. "Do you want me to go back and correct them?" Did she? 5 minutes ago, she'd been standing in front of her boss, wearing the wrong dress, being torn apart for sport. Now she was standing next to the most powerful man in the room, and everyone who'd laughed at her looked terrified. "No," she said. Something flickered in his expression, approval maybe, or interest. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sienna. Sienna Hart. It's nice to meet you, Sienna Hart." He held out his hand again, formal this time. "I'm Luca." She shook it, feeling ridiculous. "I know who you are." "Do you?" "Everyone knows who you are." "They know my name. That's different." He released her hand but didn't step back. "Can I buy you a drink? A real one, I mean, not whatever that is." He nodded at the champagne glass she'd been holding like a shield. "I should probably leave," Sienna said, "before this gets worse." "It won't get worse." "You just told 300 people I'm your wife. It's definitely going to get worse." "Then let it." His voice was calm, certain. "You're not going back to that conversation. You're not apologizing to that man. And you're not leaving until you've had at least one decent drink and something to eat. Have you eaten?" She hadn't. She'd been too anxious about the gala to manage more than coffee that morning. "No," she admitted. "Then we're staying." He gestured toward the far end of the ballroom, where tables were laden with enough food to feed a small country. "Come on." "Mr. Moretti." "Luca." "Luca." She felt strange saying it. "I don't understand why you're doing this." He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. 3 weeks ago," he said quietly, "I was leaving a restaurant downtown. There was an elderly woman on the sidewalk, confused, upset. She'd gotten separated from her daughter and didn't know where she was. Everyone walked past her, but you stopped. You spent 20 minutes helping her, called her daughter, waited with her until she arrived. You missed your bus because of it." Sienna's breath caught. She remembered that night. The woman had been so frightened, disoriented. It hadn't seemed like a choice. It was just what you did. "You were watching me?" "I was walking to my car. I noticed." He paused. "You didn't do it for attention. You didn't take a photo, didn't tell anyone. You just helped her because she needed help. That's rare. That's basic human decency." "Exactly." His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "And in my world, basic human decency is the rarest thing you'll ever find." Before she could respond, a waiter appeared with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Luca took 2 small plates, handed one to Sienna, and guided her toward a quieter section of the room. People noticed. Of course they noticed. But now, instead of mockery, she saw something else in their faces. Uncertainty, fear even. Because she was standing next to Luca Moretti, because he'd called her his wife, because in one impossible moment, everything had changed. They found a small table near the windows overlooking the city. The view was stunning, lights stretching out in every direction, the skyline glittering like a promise. Sienna set down her plate, her appetite gone, her mind racing. "This is insane," she said. "Yes. People are going to ask questions. Let them. My boss is going to—" "Your boss," Luca interrupted, "is going to leave you alone. Trust me." She looked at him, the stranger who'd stepped into her life like a hurricane. "Why are you so sure?" "Because Richard Hendricks needs me more than I need him. His firm handles contract work for 3 of my projects. If he's smart, he'll pretend tonight never happened." Sienna felt something cold settle in her chest. "You're going to use your business relationship to protect me? I'm going to use my business relationship to make sure he doesn't punish you for my mistake." Luca's voice was steady. That's different. Is it? Yes. He leaned back in his chair, watching her. You don't trust easily, do you? I don't trust people who pretend to be something they're not. I'm not pretending. You just told everyone I'm your wife. That was a lie. This, he gestured between them, isn't. What is this exactly? I don't know yet. He said it simply, without embarrassment. But I'd like to find out. Sienna's head was spinning. An hour ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was sitting across from a man who looked at her like she mattered, like she was worth noticing. It felt dangerous. It felt like something that would hurt when it ended. I should go, she said again, but she didn't move. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Or because you're afraid. She met his eyes. Of what? Of being seen. He said it quietly, without judgment. You're used to being overlooked. It's safer that way. Easier. But I see you, Sienna Hart, and I don't think you know what to do with that. Her throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. The music shifted. The string quartet began playing something slower, something that pulled couples onto the dance floor. Luca stood and offered his hand. Dance with me. I don't. Yes, you do. His voice was certain. One dance, then I'll take you home if that's what you want. It was a terrible idea. Dancing with him would make the lie more convincing. It would give people more to talk about. It would cement the story he'd started. She took his hand anyway. The dance floor was crowded, full of couples moving in practice synchronization. Luca led her to the center, one hand settling at her waist, the other holding hers with careful precision. He moved like someone who'd learned to dance at expensive schools, all control and confidence. Sienna had learned to dance in her high school gym during prom preparation. She'd stepped on her partner's feet 6 times. Relax, Luca murmured. Everyone's watching. Let them. That's easy for you to say. No. His grip tightened slightly. It's not. But I'm doing it anyway. She looked up at him, startled. He was watching her with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. Why? She asked. Because you deserve to be looked at like you matter, and if I have to be the one to show them, I will. The song continued. They moved together, and somehow, impossibly, Sienna stopped stepping on his feet. She stopped thinking about the people watching. She stopped remembering that this was fake, that tomorrow she'd go back to her tiny apartment and her terrible job and her mountain of debt. For 3.5 minutes, she let herself believe the lie. When the music ended, Luca didn't release her immediately. They stood there, still touching, while the ballroom applauded politely and moved on to the next thing. Thank you, Sienna said quietly. For what? For making tonight less horrible than it was going to be. His jaw tightened. It shouldn't have been horrible at all. That's life. It doesn't have to be. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the moment. Luca, I didn't expect to see you here. Sienna turned. The man approaching was younger than Luca, blonde, handsome in a calculated way. He wore a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Donovan? Luca's voice cooled by several degrees. What a surprise. Isn't it? Donovan's gaze slid to Sienna, assessing. And who's this? My wife, Luca said without hesitation. Sienna. Donovan's smile widened. Wife? How wonderful! I had no idea you'd gotten married. We keep our private life private, clearly. Donovan held out his hand to Sienna. Donovan Cross, Luca and I are old friends. She shook his hand. His grip was too firm, too long. It's nice to meet you, she said automatically. The pleasure is mine. He released her hand but didn't step back. How did you two meet? I'm always fascinated by love stories. She helped someone who needed it, Luca said. That's all you need to know. Something flickered in Donovan's expression. Interest, calculation. How noble. You always did have a weakness for lost causes. Careful, Luca said quietly. I'm just making conversation. Donovan's smile never wavered. After all, Sienna and I should get to know each other. We'll be seeing a lot of each other, I imagine. No, Luca said. You won't. The temperature in their small circle dropped. Sienna could feel the tension rolling off Luca in waves. Donovan raised his hands in mock surrender. Just being friendly, old friend. No need to get territorial. He glanced at Sienna one more time. Enjoy your evening, Mrs. Moretti. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Luca's jaw was tight. I'm sorry about that. Who was he? Someone I used to do business with. We had a disagreement. About what? About how much violence is acceptable in pursuit of profit. He said it flatly, without elaboration. Sienna's stomach turned. What? Luca looked at her, his expression carefully neutral. I should take you home. Wait, what did you just... Sienna. He said her name gently, like a warning. There are things about my life you don't know, things that would make you walk away if I told you. So I'm not going to tell you, not tonight. That's not fair. No, he agreed. It's not, but it's honest. She wanted to push, to demand answers, but there was something in his eyes, something dark and certain, that made her hesitate. Come on, he said. I'll get your coat. They left the gala together, Luca's hand at the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. People stared. Monica looked like she'd swallowed glass. Richard Hendricks watched them go with an expression Sienna couldn't read. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. A black car pulled up immediately, expensive, sleek, driven by someone who looked like he could double as a bodyguard. Luca opened the door for her. Where do you live? She told him. He repeated the address to the driver, then climbed in beside her. The drive was quiet. Sienna stared out the window, watching the city blur past, trying to process everything that had happened. Her phone buzzed 3 times, texts from coworkers probably. She ignored them. You didn't have to do this, she said finally. Any of it. I know. So why did you? Luca was silent for a moment. Because I wanted to. Because watching you stand there and take that made me angry. And because... He stopped, jaw tightening. Because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What? That some people are still good. The car pulled up in front of her building, a narrow apartment complex in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be respectable. Luca looked at it without judgment, then at her. Thank you for tonight, he said. I should be thanking you. We can both be grateful. He pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to her. If your boss gives you trouble, call me. She took the card. Heavy stock, simple printing, just a name and a number. I don't think I will, she said honestly. I know, but keep it anyway. She opened the door, then paused. Luca? Yes? That thing you said, about violence and profit, what did you mean? His expression shuddered. Good night, Sienna. She climbed out of the car and watched it pull away, the card still in her hand. Inside her apartment, she kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto her second-hand couch. Her phone was full of messages now, dozens of them. Screenshots of her dancing with Luca, questions, accusations. Monica had sent 7 texts, each more frantic than the last. Sienna ignored them all. Instead, she looked at the card he'd given her. Black ink on white paper. Simple, direct. She should throw it away. Whatever Luca Moretti was involved in, it was clearly dangerous. He'd all but admitted it. Getting tangled up with him would be a mistake, the kind of mistake that ended badly. But she didn't throw the card away. She set it on her coffee table and stared at it until she fell asleep, still wearing her wrong dress, still feeling the warmth of his hand against her waist. The next morning, Sienna woke to a voicemail from Richard Hendricks. His voice was tight, professional, and notably different from the night before. Sienna, Richard, just calling to say, well, to apologize if I was too harsh last night. Stress of the event, you understand. Let's forget the whole thing happened. Take Monday off. Paid. You've been working hard. You deserve it. She deleted the message. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Sienna Hart? The voice was female, efficient. Yes? This is Claire Donovan from Moretti Enterprises. Mr. Moretti would like to know if you're free for lunch today. 1 o'clock. There's a car outside your building. Sienna went to the window. The black car from last night was parked at the curb. She stopped. I don't remember giving him my number. Mr. Moretti is very resourceful. Will you be joining him for lunch? Every rational part of Sienna's brain said no. This was too fast, too much. She didn't know this man. She didn't know what he wanted, and he'd already demonstrated he was willing to lie, to manipulate, to use his power in ways that should terrify her. "Yes," she said. "I'll be ready in 20 minutes. "Excellent. The driver will wait." The call ended. Sienna stood in her tiny apartment, looking at the card on her coffee table, at the expensive car outside her building, at the life she'd built on being small and safe and invisible. Then she went to get dressed. Whatever this was, wherever it led, she was choosing it. And that terrified her more than anything. The car smelled like leather and money. Sienna sat in the back seat, trying not to touch anything, while the driver navigated downtown traffic with the kind of precision that suggested he'd done this route 1,000 times. She'd changed into a navy dress, nicer than yesterday's, but still nothing that belonged in Luca Moretti's world. Her hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with the strap of her purse. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor. White tablecloths. Waiters who moved like dancers. Sienna had walked past it 100 times on her way to work, never imagining she'd be inside. Luca was already there, sitting at a corner table with a view of the water. He stood when he saw her, and that simple gesture, old-fashioned, deliberate, made her stomach flip. "You came," he said. "Your assistant was very persuasive. Claire usually is." He pulled out her chair. "I'm glad you're here." Sienna sat, hyper-aware of how out of place she felt. A waiter appeared instantly, pouring water, offering wine. She declined. Luca ordered sparkling water for both of them. "I'm not going to get you drunk and take advantage of you," he said when the waiter left. "In case that's what you're worried about." "I wasn't worried about that." "Then what are you worried about?" "Everything," she wanted to say. That this was a game she didn't understand. That he had motives she couldn't see. That last night had felt like a rescue, but might turn out to be something else entirely. "I don't know why I'm here," she said instead. "Because I asked, and you said yes." "That's not an answer." "No," Luca agreed. "It's not." He leaned back, studying her. "Do you want me to explain what last night was about? Why I did what I did?" "Yes." He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words. "I meant what I said, about seeing you help that woman. It stayed with me. And when I walked into that gala last night and saw you standing there, being torn apart for sport by people who wouldn't cross the street to help a stranger," he stopped, jaw tightening. "I couldn't walk away." "So it was pity?" "No. It was recognition." His eyes were steady on hers. "I know what it's like to be underestimated. To be treated like you're less than you are because you don't fit someone's idea of valuable. You're one of the richest men in the city. Nobody underestimates you. Now they don't. But I wasn't always this." He gestured vaguely at the restaurant, at himself. "I came from nothing, Sienna, and I clawed my way up by being willing to do things other people wouldn't. Some of those things were brilliant, some were ruthless, and some—" He paused. "Some I'm not proud of." The waiter returned with menus. They ordered. Sienna chose the first thing she saw, barely reading it. Luca ordered something she didn't recognize, and the waiter wrote it down like it was a secret code. When they were alone again, Luca continued, "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know who you're having lunch with. I'm not a good man pretending to be bad. I'm a bad man who occasionally does good things, and last night, stepping in for you, that was one of the good things." "Why do you keep saying you're bad?" "Because it's true." "That's not an answer either." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You don't let things go, do you? Not when people talk in riddles and expect me to just accept it." "Fair enough." He folded his hands on the table. "I run a development company. Legitimate, legal, profitable. But the world I operate in, the people I deal with, they're not all legitimate. Some of them are dangerous, some of them solve problems with violence instead of lawyers, and I've worked with them when it suited me." Sienna's chest tightened. "What kind of problems?" "The kind that disappear when the right person makes the right call." He said it flatly, without apology. "I'm not going to lie to you and say I'm clean. I'm not. But I'm also not the monster you're probably imagining." "How do you know what I'm imagining?" "Because you're still sitting here. If you thought I was a monster, you'd have left already." He was right. She should leave. This was exactly the kind of red flag her mother had warned her about. Men who admitted to darkness like it was charm, who confused honesty with integrity. But she didn't leave. "That man last night," she said. "Donovan." What did he mean about violence and profit? Luca's expression hardened. Donovan Cross runs money for people who make their fortunes hurting others. Human trafficking, drugs, extortion. I used to think we could coexist, him doing his business, me doing mine. Then I found out he was using one of my properties to move girls across state lines. He paused. I made sure he couldn't use my properties for anything ever again. He's been trying to retaliate ever since. How did you make sure? Do you really want to know? She thought about it. Did she? Knowing would make this real in a way she couldn't take back. Not knowing let her maintain the fiction that Luca was just eccentric, powerful, maybe a little ruthless, but ultimately safe. Yes, she said. I had his accounts frozen, his permits pulled, his reputation destroyed in every circle that mattered. And when he sent someone to burn down one of my construction sites in retaliation, I made sure that person ended up in a hospital for 3 months. Luca's voice didn't change. He survived, barely. Donovan got the message. Sienna's hands were cold. You had someone put in the hospital. I gave the order. Someone else did the work. That's the same thing. Yes, it is. He watched her. Are you going to leave now? She should. Every instinct screamed at her to walk out, to go back to her safe, small life, where the worst thing that happened was public humiliation, not hospitalized enforcers. I don't know, she said honestly. That's better than I expected. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not asking you to approve of what I do. I'm asking you to understand that the world I live in has different rules. And if you're going to be in my life, even peripherally, you need to know what those rules are. Why would I be in your life? Because I want you to be. The simplicity of it stunned her. No games, no manipulation, just want, stated like fact. You don't know me, Sienna said. I know enough. You're kind. You're stubborn. You don't back down even when you should. And you see people, really see them, in a way most people don't. He paused. That's rare, especially in my world. The food arrived. Some kind of fish for Sienna, cooked perfectly, garnished with things she couldn't name. Luca's dish looked equally elaborate. She picked up her fork, her appetite gone, but eating gave her something to do with her hands. What do you want from me? She asked. I don't know yet. Cut into his food with precision. Maybe just this. Lunch? Conversation? A chance to know someone who doesn't want something from me. Everyone wants something. Do you? She thought about it. What did she want? Her student loans paid off. Her mother's medical bills handled. A job that didn't make her feel worthless. Security, respect. A life that felt like hers instead of something she was borrowing. Yes, she said. But not from you. See? Rare. He took a bite, watching her. Tell me about your life, the real one. Not the version you show people at work. So she did. She told him about her mother's MS diagnosis 3 years ago. About the medical bills that multiplied faster than she could pay them. About her student loans from a degree she'd never finished because working 40 hours a week and going to school full-time had broken something in her she couldn't fix. About her apartment with the leaky faucet and the neighbor who played saxophone at 2 a.m. About feeling like she was running as fast as she could and still falling behind. Luca listened without interrupting, without offering solutions, without the pity she'd come to expect when people heard her story. That's why you stay at the firm, he said when she finished, even though Hendricks treats you like dirt. The insurance is good, and it pays enough to keep me afloat. Barely. Barely is better than drowning. He set down his fork. What if you didn't have to choose between barely and drowning? What if there was another option? There isn't. There could be. Sienna's stomach nodded. I'm not sleeping with you for money. Luca blinked, then laughed. A real laugh. Surprised and genuine. That's not what I meant, although I appreciate your directness. Heat flooded her face. Then what did you mean? I meant that I have resources, connections. I could make your life easier without you having to compromise anything. That's charity. It's investment. There's a difference. Not to me. He studied her, something like respect in his expression. You really don't want my help. I don't want to owe anyone anything. What if it wasn't debt? What if it was just... He paused, searching for the word. Kindness? Kindness doesn't come without strings. Mine does. She wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. She wanted to believe that this powerful, complicated man actually cared about her for no reason other than that he'd noticed her being kind to a stranger. But belief was expensive, and she'd learned not to spend it carelessly. "I should go," she said, setting down her napkin. "You haven't finished eating." "I'm not hungry." Luca didn't argue. He signaled for the check, paid with a card that made the waiter's eyes widen, and stood. "I'll have the driver take you home." "I can take the bus." "I know you can, but you won't." She wanted to argue, to prove she didn't need his car or his driver or his carefully controlled world. But she was tired, and the bus ride was 40 minutes, and she wasn't sure she had the energy to fight him on this too. "Fine," she said. They walked to the car in silence. The driver was waiting, as if he'd known exactly when they'd be finished. Luca opened the door for her, then paused. "I meant what I said last night," he told her, "about seeing you. I don't say things I don't mean. That's a luxury most people can't afford." "Maybe, but you can. With me." She climbed into the car and he closed the door. Through the tinted window, she watched him walk back into the restaurant, shoulders straight, every inch of him radiating the kind of confidence that came from never having to question your place in the world. The driver pulled into traffic. Sienna's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you for lunch. If you need anything, and I mean anything, call me." She stared at the message, then at the city passing by outside. Everything about this felt impossible. Men like Luca Moretti didn't notice women like her. They didn't rescue them at galas or take them to expensive lunches or offer help without conditions, except he had. And she had no idea what to do with that. The next 3 weeks were strange. Sienna went back to work expecting fallout from the gala, but Richard Hendricks barely spoke to her. When he did, his tone was careful, almost deferential. Monica avoided her entirely. The other paralegals whispered when she walked by, but no one said anything to her face. It should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. Luca texted her every few days. Nothing invasive, just small check-ins. "How was your day? Have you eaten? I saw something that made me think of you." That last one came with a photo of a street musician playing violin in the park. Sienna had mentioned during lunch that her mother used to play violin before the MS made it impossible. She didn't respond to most of his texts. When she did, she kept it brief, polite, distant. But she didn't block his number. On a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after the gala, Sienna was leaving work when she found Luca leaning against a black car across the street. He was dressed casually, dark jeans, a fitted shirt, and somehow looked more dangerous than he had in a tuxedo. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. "Are you stalking me?" she called across the street. "That depends." "Is it working?" Despite herself, she smiled. "No." "Then I'm just coincidentally in your neighborhood." He pushed off the car. "Have dinner with me." "I can't." "You have plans?" "I have leftover pasta and a stack of case files to review." "That sounds depressing." "It's my life." "It doesn't have to be." He crossed the street to her, stopping just close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him. "One dinner, somewhere quiet, no pressure, I promise." She should say no. She'd been saying no for 3 weeks, in her head if not out loud. She'd convinced herself that distance was safe, that letting Luca fade back into his world while she stayed in hers was the smart choice. But standing there, with him looking at her like she was the only person on the street, smart felt overrated. "Somewhere quiet," she repeated. "I know a place." The place turned out to be his penthouse. Sienna stood in the private elevator, watching the floor numbers climb, and wondered if she'd made a catastrophic mistake. When the doors opened directly into his apartment, that wondering turned into certainty. The space was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and a kitchen that was bigger than her entire apartment. It was beautiful in an impersonal way, like a hotel suite designed to impress. "I thought we were going to a restaurant," she said. "I said quiet. Restaurants aren't quiet." Luca shrugged off his jacket. "I ordered food. It'll be here in 20 minutes. Do you want wine?" "Are you trying to get me drunk now?" "I'm trying to get you to relax. There's a difference." She accepted the wine. It was better than anything she'd ever tasted. Smooth, complex, probably expensive enough to pay her rent. She took a small sip and watched Luca move around the kitchen with easy familiarity, pulling out plates, setting the table on the balcony. You do this often? She asked. Bring women to your penthouse for quiet dinners? No. I don't believe you. He looked up at her, his expression serious. I don't care if you believe me, it's still true. The food arrived. Thai, fragrant and excessive. They ate on the balcony, the city spread out below them like something they could reach out and touch. The conversation flowed easier than Sienna expected. They talked about everything and nothing, books they'd read, places they wanted to travel, the weird things people did on the subway. Luca told her about growing up in a neighborhood where survival meant being smarter and meaner than everyone around you. She told him about her father leaving when she was 8, about watching her mother work 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Is that why you do it? Luca asked. Work yourself to exhaustion for a boss who doesn't appreciate you? I do it because I don't have a choice. Everyone has choices. Easy to say when you have money. I didn't always have money, and I still had choices. He set down his fork. Some of them were bad. Some of them I regret, but they were mine. What do you regret? Trusting the wrong people. Hurting people who didn't deserve it. Waiting too long to walk away from situations I knew were toxic. He paused. Not telling people the truth when I should have. Are you telling me the truth now? Yes? She wanted to believe him. The wine was making her warm, making the edges of her doubt softer. Or maybe it wasn't the wine. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, like she was something worth his full attention. Why me? She asked quietly. You could have anyone, someone who fits in your world, someone who doesn't come with debt and problems, and someone easier? Luca finished. Maybe. But I don't want easier. I want you. The words hung in the air between them. Sienna set down her glass. You don't know me well enough to want me. Then let me know you better. What if you don't like what you find? What if I do? She didn't have an answer for that. Luca stood, offering his hand. Come here. She took it, letting him pull her up. He led her to the edge of the balcony, where the railing overlooked 30 floors of nothing. The wind was cool, carrying the sound of traffic and distant sirens. Do you see that building? He pointed to a high-rise under construction several blocks away. I bought that lot 5 years ago. Everyone said I was insane. It was contaminated soil, surrounded by condemned properties, in a neighborhood where people got mugged in broad daylight. What did you do? I cleaned it up, bought the surrounding properties, made deals with the city, and now it's going to be luxury condos that sell for $3 million each. He turned to look at her. Everyone sees limitations. I see possibilities. I'm not a building project, Luca. No. You're better. His hand was still holding hers. You're someone who gives a damn, who helps strangers, who stands in front of people who want to destroy you and refuses to break. That's not a limitation. That's strength. Her throat tightened. You barely know me. I know enough. He stepped closer. I know that you're scared right now, that you want to run because being close to someone is dangerous, that you've learned to keep yourself small because it's safer that way. But Sienna, he lifted his free hand to her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. You were never meant to be small. She should step back, create distance, remind herself that this was temporary, that men like him didn't end up with women like her. Instead, she leaned into his touch. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably. I'm going to get hurt. Not by me. You can't promise that. No, he agreed. But I can try. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was hungry and certain and tasted like wine and want. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head, and she grabbed his shirt to keep from falling into the space between this moment and the next. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Stay, he said. Luca. Not for that. Just stay. Talk to me. Let me know you. His forehead rested against hers. Please. She should say no. She should call a car, go home, put distance between herself and this man who made her feel like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll stay. They moved inside. Luca gave her one of his shirts to sleep in, soft, expensive, smelling like him. She changed in his bathroom, which was larger than her bedroom, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her lips were swollen from kissing. Her hair was a mess. She looked like someone she didn't recognize. When she came out, Luca had changed into pajama pants and nothing else. Sienna tried not to stare at the scars crossing his ribs, his abdomen, evidence of violence written on his skin. He caught her looking. Hazards of the life I've lived. Does it hurt? Not anymore. He gestured to the couch. I'll sleep here. You can have the bed. I'm not kicking you out of your own bed. You're not kicking me, I'm offering. Luca, Sienna. He smiled. Just take the bed. We'll argue about it more in the morning if you want. She was too tired to fight. She climbed into his bed, massive, soft, with sheets that felt like water, and let herself sink into it. Luca turned off the lights, and she heard him settle on the couch. Good night, he said quietly. Good night. She should have felt awkward, sleeping in a stranger's bed while he was 20 feet away. But somehow, with the city lights filtering through the windows and the sound of his breathing in the darkness, she felt safer than she had in years. Sienna fell asleep thinking about possibilities. She woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, Sienna couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back. Luca's penthouse, his bed, the kiss on the balcony that had made her forget every reason she should have walked away. She sat up, running her hands through her tangled hair. The shirt she'd borrowed rode up her thighs. She tugged it down and padded barefoot into the main living area. Luca was in the kitchen, dressed in a t-shirt and jeans, making breakfast. Actual breakfast. Eggs, toast, fruit cut into neat pieces. He looked up when she appeared, and something in his expression softened. You're awake, he said. What time is it? 8:30. I let you sleep. Sienna's stomach dropped. I have to be at work by 9. I called Hendricks, told him you'd be late. She stared at him. You what? I called your boss, said you were handling a personal matter and would be in by noon. He said it casually, like it was nothing. He was very understanding. You can't just... She stopped, frustration rising. You can't make decisions for me. I know. I'm sorry. He set down the spatula. I should have woken you, but you looked like you needed the sleep. That's not the point. Then what is the point? The point is, I'm not some project you can manage. I have a life, responsibilities. You can't just call my boss and rearrange my schedule because you feel like it. Luca's jaw tightened. You're right. I overstepped. The apology took the wind out of her anger. She'd expected him to argue, to use his power as justification. But he just stood there, acknowledging the mistake without defending it. I need to go home, she said. Change clothes, get to work. I'll have the driver take you. I can take the bus. Sienna. He moved closer, stopping just out of reach. Let me do this one thing, please. She wanted to refuse out of principle, but she was already late, and taking the bus would make her later, and Richard Hendricks might be afraid of Luca, but that fear wouldn't last forever. Fine, she said. But this doesn't mean you get to run my life. I don't want to run your life. I want to be in it. He picked up a coffee mug and held it out to her. At least drink this before you go. The coffee was perfect, strong, hot, with just enough cream. She drank it standing by the window, watching the city wake up below. Luca kept his distance, giving her space, but she could feel him watching. Thank you, she said finally. For last night, for... She gestured vaguely. All of it. You don't have to thank me. I know, but I am anyway. The driver took her home. Sienna changed in record time, pulling on a skirt and blouse, fixing her makeup in the bathroom mirror. She looked tired. She looked like someone who'd made questionable choices and didn't regret them yet. Her phone buzzed, a text from Luca. I'm sorry about this morning. I promise to ask next time before I rearrange your life. L. She almost smiled. Almost. Work was excruciating. Richard Hendricks eyed her nervously when she arrived, asked if everything was all right, and then left her alone. Monica and her circle whispered in the break room, falling silent when Sienna walked in. The whole office felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. By lunch, Sienna was ready to scream. She was heating up leftover pasta in the break room microwave when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Sienna Hart? The voice was male, smooth, vaguely familiar. Yes? This is Donovan Cross. We met at the gala. Her blood went cold. How did you get this number? I have resources. Listen, I know you're busy, but I'd like to talk to you. It's important. I don't have anything to say to you. It's about Luca. She should hang up. Everything about this felt wrong. The timing, the tone, the fact that Donovan had tracked down her personal number. What about him? She heard herself ask. Not over the phone. Meet me for coffee, today. There's a place on 5th and Market, 3 o'clock. I'm not meeting you anywhere. I understand your hesitation, but Sienna, his voice dropped. There are things about Luca Moretti you need to know, things he won't tell you, and if you're smart, you'll want to hear them before you get in any deeper. I'm hanging up now. He's dangerous, more dangerous than you realize. And the people he's involved with, they don't care about collateral damage. If you're with him, you're a target. I'm trying to help you. By tracking down my number and calling me at work? She kept her voice low, aware of Monica pretending not to listen 3 feet away. That's not help, that's stalking. Fine, don't meet me. But when things go wrong, and they will go wrong, remember I tried to warn you. He hung up. Sienna stood in the break room, her hands shaking, while the microwave beeped behind her. Monica was openly staring now. Everything okay? Monica asked, her voice dripping with false concern. Fine. That sounded intense. It was nothing. Right, nothing. Monica smiled. You know, everyone's talking about you and Luca Moretti, how you're his wife now, how he rescued you at the gala. It's very romantic. We're not married. But he said, he lied, to get those women off my back. That's all it was. Monica's smile widened. So you're not together? I didn't say that. But you're not married. No. Interesting. Monica pulled her phone from her pocket, tapping something quickly. Very interesting. Sienna's stomach churned. She grabbed her pasta from the microwave, too hot to eat, burning through the plastic container, and walked back to her desk. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. If anything feels wrong, call me. I mean it. L. It was like he knew, like he could sense trouble even when he was miles away. She typed a response. Donovan called me, wants to meet. I said no. The reply came instantly. Good. Don't go anywhere near him. I'm serious. I wasn't planning to. I'll explain tonight. Can I see you? She stared at the message. Last night had been a mistake. A beautiful, dangerous mistake that she couldn't afford to repeat. Getting closer to Luca meant getting closer to his world, and his world included men like Donovan Cross, who made threatening phone calls and talked about collateral damage. I don't think that's a good idea. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Please. That single word broke something in her. Okay. But somewhere public, anywhere you want. They met at a diner 6 blocks from her apartment, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who'd been working there since the 80s. Luca looked absurdly out of place in his tailored clothes, but he slid into the booth across from her without comment. Thank you for meeting me, he said. You said you'd explain. I will, but first tell me exactly what Donovan said. She recounted the conversation as precisely as she could. Luca's expression darkened with every sentence. He's trying to scare you away, Luca said when she finished. Is it working? I don't know. You're here. Because you asked, not because I'm not scared. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Donovan wants to hurt me. He's been trying for months. And the easiest way to hurt me is to take something I care about. I'm not something you care about. We barely know each other. That doesn't make it less true. His grip tightened. I care about you, Sienna. More than I should. More than is smart. And Donovan knows that. How? We've been careful. There's no such thing as careful in my world. People watch. They listen. They piece together information and use it however they can. He paused. After the gala, after I claimed you as my wife, that put you on the radar. And now Donovan thinks he can use you as leverage. Fear coiled in her chest. To do what? To make me back down from a business deal we're both interested in. Or to force me into a partnership I don't want. Or just to prove he can. Luca's voice was flat, controlled. He's not creative, he's just mean. So what do I do? You stay away from him. You don't answer his calls. You don't meet him for coffee or anything else. And you let me handle it. Let you handle it how? He pulled his hand back. You don't want to know. Stop saying that. Stop deciding what I can and can't handle. Fine, you want the truth? His eyes were hard. I'm going to make it clear to Donovan that you're off limits, that touching you, threatening you, even thinking about you is a line he doesn't cross. And I'm going to make that very, very clear in a way he understands. Violence, if necessary. This is insane. Sienna's voice rose. This whole thing is insane. I met you 3 weeks ago, and now I'm sitting in a diner talking about whether you're going to hurt someone because of me. I know. That's all you have to say? I know? What do you want me to say? His voice was quiet but intense. That I'm sorry? I am. That I wish I could make this easier? I do. But Sienna, I can't change who I am. I can't change the world I operate in. The only thing I can do is protect you from the worst parts of it. I didn't ask for your protection. I'm giving it anyway. She wanted to scream. She wanted to walk out and never look back. But sitting across from Luca, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the genuine fear in his eyes, she realized he meant every word. He would hurt Donovan. He would do terrible things, and he would do them because of her. I should leave, she said. You should, but you won't. You sound very sure of that. I'm not sure of anything. He leaned forward. Except that you're braver than you think, and you don't run from hard things just because they're hard. Maybe I should start? Maybe, but you won't. The waitress appeared, pad in hand, looking bored. They ordered coffee neither of them wanted. When she left, the silence stretched between them. Tell me something, Sienna said, finally. If I walk away right now, will Donovan still be a threat? Probably. So leaving doesn't actually protect me? No. It just means you'd be dealing with the threat alone. She hated that he was right. Hated that her choices had narrowed to this: stay close to Luca and let him handle things his way, or cut ties and hope Donovan lost interest. What happened to your ribs? She asked abruptly. Those scars. Luca blinked at the subject change. Which ones? The one that goes from your ribs to your hip. Knife fight, 7 years ago. Some guys thought I was moving in on their territory. Were you? Yes, but I won anyway. He said it matter-of-factly. I was younger then, stupider, more interested in proving I was tough than in actually being smart. And now? Now I pay people to do the stupid things for me. She shouldn't have laughed. It wasn't funny, but something about the way he said it, dry, honest, made her chest loosen. This is the weirdest conversation I've ever had, she said. I've had weirder. I don't want to know. Smart. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sienna, I need you to understand something. Getting close to me comes with risks, real ones. Donovan is just the beginning. There are people in my world who would use you to get to me, who wouldn't hesitate to hurt you if it served their interests. So you're telling me to stay away? No. I'm telling you to be aware, to make an informed choice instead of stumbling into something you don't understand. And if I choose to stay, his expression shifted. Hope, fear, something rawer than either. Then I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe. Everything including violence. Yes, she should walk away. Every rational part of her brain screamed it, but sitting across from Luca, seeing the way he looked at her, like she was precious and breakable and worth protecting, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe she was tired of being careful. Maybe she was tired of choosing safe over real. Or maybe she just wanted to know what it felt like to be chosen by someone who didn't need her for anything except herself. I'm staying, she said. Luca exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He reached across the table again, taking both her hands this time. I won't let anything happen to you. You can't promise that. I can try. The coffee arrived. They drank it in silence, hands still linked across the table, while the diner hummed with conversation and the smell of frying bacon. It felt surreal, sitting in this ordinary place, making extraordinary choices, with a man who promised violence as easily as protection. Sienna's phone buzzed. She pulled it out with her free hand. A text from an unknown number. Last chance. Meet me or regret it. She showed it to Luca. His expression went dark. "Block the number," he said. She did, but her hands were shaking. Luca stood, pulling out his own phone. "I need to make some calls. Can you wait here for 10 minutes? "What are you going to do?" "Make it clear that contacting you again would be a mistake." He walked outside before she could argue. Through the diner's grimy window, she watched him pace, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing sharply. He looked angry, dangerous, like someone who could make people disappear with a phone call. Sienna wrapped her hands around her coffee mug and tried not to think about what she'd just agreed to. Luca returned 15 minutes later, his expression carefully neutral. "It's handled," he said. "What does that mean?" "It means Donovan won't be calling you again." "Lucas, I didn't hurt him. I just made it clear that harassing you would have consequences he doesn't want." He slid back into the booth. "He's a coward. Cowards back down when you show them you're serious. And if he doesn't back down, then I'll handle it." She wanted details. She wanted to know exactly what Luca had said, who he'd called, what machinery he'd set in motion. But asking meant knowing, and knowing meant complicity. "I should get home," she said instead. "I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "I want to." They drove in his car, a sleek black thing that probably cost more than her student loans. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console between them. Sienna stared out the window, watching her neighborhood materialize block by block. When they pulled up in front of her building, Luca cut the engine. "I know this is a lot," he said. "I know I'm asking you to trust me when you have no reason to, but Sienna," he turned to look at her, "I meant what I said last night, about wanting you, about seeing you. None of that was a lie." "I know." "Do you?" She thought about it. Did she trust him? Did she believe he actually cared about her, or was this all some elaborate game she didn't understand? "I want to," she said finally. "That has to be enough for now." "It is." He leaned across the console and kissed her. Slower this time, gentler, like he was trying to memorize the shape of her mouth. When he pulled back, his hand lingered on her cheek. "Good night, Sienna." "Good night." She climbed out of the car and walked into her building without looking back. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the door and tried to catch her breath. Her phone buzzed. She expected Luca. Instead, it was a notification from her bank. A deposit, $50,000. Her heart stopped. She called Luca immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Did you put money in my account?" she demanded. Silence. "Luca, did you?" "Your mother's medical bills," he said quietly. "I took care of them." "You what?" "I paid them. All of them. And the deposit is for your student loans." Sienna's vision blurred. "You had no right." "I know. I told you I didn't want your money. I told you I didn't want to owe anyone." "You don't owe me anything." "That's not how this works," her voice cracked. You can't decide what I need and throw money at it. That's not caring. That's control." "That's not what I'm doing." "Then what are you doing?" "I'm trying to make your life easier." His voice was strained. "You were drowning, Sienna. I saw it. And I have the resources to help, so I did." "Without asking me." "Because I knew you'd say no." "Exactly. I would have said no because it's my choice to make, my life, my debt." Tears were streaming down her face now. "You don't get to rescue me just because you can." "I'm sorry." He sounded wrecked. "I thought I was helping." "You were deciding. There's a difference." The line went quiet. She could hear him breathing. "What do you want me to do?" he asked finally. "I want you to take the money back." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because it's already paid. The medical bills are settled, and the money in your account, it's yours now. You can do whatever you want with it. Send it back if you hate it that much. But I can't undo what's already done." Sienna sank onto her couch, her whole body shaking. Part of her wanted to scream at him, to tell him he'd ruined everything. But another part, a part she hated acknowledging, felt relief. Her mother's bills were gone. That crushing weight she'd been carrying for 3 years had lifted, and she hated that she felt relieved. "I need space," she said. "Okay. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my apartment or my office." "For how long?" "I don't know. Until I can think. Sienna, please, Luca, just give me this. He was quiet for a long moment. Okay, but if you need anything, if Donovan contacts you again or anything feels wrong, I'll call the police. They won't help. Then I'll figure it out myself. She hung up before he could argue. The apartment was too quiet. Sienna sat in the dark, staring at her phone, at the banking app showing numbers that didn't feel real. $50,000. Her mother's medical debt erased. Her student loans manageable now instead of suffocating. Luca had given her freedom, and she hated him for it. She hated him because he'd taken away her choice, because he'd made decisions about her life without consulting her, because he thought money could fix the fundamental problem, that she wanted to be seen as an equal, not a charity case, but she also hated herself, because underneath the anger and violation there was gratitude, relief, and a terrible creeping affection for a man who'd looked at her life and decided it shouldn't be so hard. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. The hospital called. They said my bills were paid. Did you do something? Sienna closed her eyes. Don't worry about it, Mom. It's handled. But how? That was almost $30,000. I got a bonus at work. It's fine. The lie came easily, too easily. Are you sure? That's so much money, I'm sure. Just focus on feeling better, okay? Okay. I love you, sweetie. Love you too. Sienna set down her phone and let herself cry. Not from sadness, not from fear, from the overwhelming complexity of feeling too many things at once. Anger, relief, gratitude, betrayal, affection, resentment. From the terrifying realization that somewhere in the last 3 weeks, she'd started falling for a man who solved problems with money and violence and didn't understand why that was wrong. 2 days passed, then 3. Luca kept his promise. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Work was quieter without his shadow looming over it. Richard Hendricks went back to being casually dismissive instead of nervously polite. Monica's smirk returned. The office settled back into its normal rhythm of small cruelties and bureaucratic tedium. Sienna should have been glad. Instead, she felt hollow. On the 4th day, she was leaving work when she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Not Luca's car. Something bigger, more aggressive. The windows were tinted dark. Her stomach dropped. She walked faster, pulling out her phone. The SUV's doors opened. 3 men stepped out, broad-shouldered, expressionless, moving with synchronized purpose. Sienna ran. She made it half a block before they caught her. A hand grabbed her arm, yanking her backward. She screamed, thrashing, but another hand clamped over her mouth. Quiet, a voice growled in her ear. We're not going to hurt you. Someone just wants to talk. They dragged her toward the SUV. She fought, kicking, biting, doing everything her body knew to do, but they were too strong, too coordinated. The door opened. They shoved her inside. Donovan Cross was waiting in the back seat, smiling. Hello, Sienna, he said pleasantly. Thanks for finally accepting my invitation. The SUV pulled away from the curb while Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs. Donovan sat beside her, relaxed, like they were old friends catching up. The 2 men who'd grabbed her sat in the front, silent and massive. Let me out, Sienna said. Her voice shook. In a minute. We're just going to have a conversation first. Donovan's smile was pleasant, practiced. You've been avoiding me. I blocked your number because you were harassing me. Harassing is such a strong word. I was trying to help. By having your thugs drag me into a car. They weren't supposed to be rough. Were you rough with her? He directed the question to the driver. She fought, the man said flatly. See? Your own fault, really. Donovan turned back to her. If you just met me for coffee like I asked, this would have been much more pleasant. Sienna's mind raced. She could try to jump out at a red light, but they'd catch her before she made it 3 steps. She could scream, but the windows were tinted and the streets were crowded. No one would hear or care. Her phone was in her purse, which one of the men had taken. What do you want? She asked. Information about Luca. I don't know anything. Don't insult my intelligence. You've been spending time with him, staying at his penthouse. Letting him pay your bills. Donovan's smile sharpened. Yes, I know about that. $50,000 is hard to hide. Her stomach turned. You've been watching me. I've been watching him. You just happen to be in the picture now. He crossed his legs, casual. So here's the situation. Luca and I are competing for a very lucrative development contract, the kind that's worth hundreds of millions, and I need leverage to make sure I win that contract. I'm not leverage. You are, if he cares about you. And he does. I can see it. Donovan leaned closer. The way he looks at you, the way he dropped everything to make a phone call after I texted you, that's not indifference, that's attachment. And attachment is weakness. He'll kill you if you hurt me. Maybe, but he has to find you first. Donovan pulled out his phone, tapping something. I'm going to send Luca a message. Tell him I have you. Tell him that if he wants you back unharmed, he needs to withdraw his bid on the waterfront contract. He won't do it. You sound very certain. Because a business deal is worth more than I am. Donovan studied her. You really believe that? She wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe Luca was rational enough to choose money over a woman he'd known for 3 weeks. But she remembered the way he'd looked at her in the diner, the raw fear in his eyes when he talked about keeping her safe. I don't know, she admitted. Honest, I appreciate that. Donovan typed out a message, then showed her the screen. I have Sienna Hart. Withdraw from the waterfront bid by midnight, or things get unpleasant for her. He hit send. Sienna's breath caught. This is insane. You're committing a felony. Only if someone reports it, and you won't. Because if you go to the police, I'll make sure everyone knows about your relationship with Luca, about the money he gave you, about all the illegal things he's done that you've been quietly ignoring. His voice stayed pleasant. Your mother's medical bills, for instance. Do you think the IRS would be interested in how you suddenly came up with $30,000? That wasn't me. That was Luca. Can you prove it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you accepted a massive cash payment from a man with very questionable business practices. That makes you complicit. Fear turned to anger. You're threatening to destroy my life if I don't let you use me as blackmail. I'm offering you a choice. Stay quiet, let this play out, and you'll be home by morning. Or make trouble, and I'll bury you in legal problems that'll take years to untangle. He tilted his head. Your choice. The SUV turned down a side street, then another. They were heading out of the city toward the industrial district where abandoned warehouses crouched like forgotten giants. Sienna's phone, still in her purse with the driver, buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Donovan smiled. That'll be Luca? Right on schedule. He reached forward, plucking the phone from the front seat. Sienna lunged for it, but he held it out of reach. Let's see what he has to say. Donovan unlocked her phone. She'd been too panicked to enable Face ID when they grabbed her, and opened the messages. His smile faded. What? Sienna demanded. Donovan turned the phone so she could see. You made a mistake. L. I'm coming for her, and when I find you, there won't be negotiation. L. Tell your men to run. They don't get paid enough to die for you. L. The messages kept coming, each one shorter and more terrifying than the last. Donovan's jaw tightened. He's bluffing. Is he? Sienna asked. The driver spoke up. Boss, maybe we should... Keep driving. Donovan's voice had lost its pleasant edge. He doesn't know where we are. Sienna's phone rang. Luca's name on the screen. Donovan answered, putting it on speaker. Hello, Luca. Put her on. Luca's voice was cold, controlled. She's fine. A little shaken, but fine. If you've hurt her, you'll what? This is business, Luca, pure and simple. You want her back, you withdraw from the waterfront contract. It's not complicated. The contract's worth $300 million. And she's worth more than that, isn't she? Donovan glanced at Sienna. Or did I miscalculate? Silence. Then, let me talk to her. Donovan held out the phone. Say hello to your boyfriend. Sienna took it with shaking hands. Luca? Are you hurt? His voice cracked slightly on the question. No, I'm fine. They grabbed me outside work. I know. I saw. Where are you now? I don't know. Some kind of warehouse district. Donovan grabbed the phone back. That's enough. So here's how this works. You have until midnight to withdraw your bid. If you do, I'll drop her off at her apartment, unharmed, and we'll both pretend this never happened. If you don't—" He paused. "Well, I'm sure you can imagine the alternatives." "There is no midnight." Luca's voice was deadly quiet. "There's now. You let her go now, or I make it my life's work to destroy everything you've ever built." Big talk from someone who doesn't know where we are. "Red Brick Warehouse, East Industrial District. The one you're using to store equipment for the harbor project you're not supposed to have started yet." Donovan's face went pale. "You've got cameras on the road," Luca continued, "but you forgot about the satellite feeds. Sloppy, Donovan. I expected better." The SUV swerved suddenly. The driver was looking in the rearview mirror, his expression tight. "Boss," he said, "we got company." Sienna twisted to look out the back window. 3 black cars were closing in fast, moving with military precision. "Shit!" Donovan leaned forward. "Lose them." "I can't lose them. They're—" The first car pulled alongside them. The window rolled down. Sienna caught a glimpse of a man with a gun before Donovan shoved her to the floor. "Get down!" The shot was deafening. Glass exploded. The SUV swerved violently, tires screaming. Sienna covered her head, heart pounding so hard she thought it would crack her ribs. "Stop the car!" Luca's voice came through the phone, still on speaker, somehow still connected. "Stop the fucking car, Donovan, or I'll run you off the road." "You're insane!" Donovan shouted. "You took her! You made this personal! Now stop the car!" The driver slammed on the brakes. The SUV skidded, fishtailing, before coming to a stop in the middle of an empty street. The 3 black cars boxed them in, 1 in front, 2 behind. Doors opened. Men emerged, more than Sienna could count. And then Luca was there. He yanked open the SUV door, his face a mask of cold fury. His eyes found Sienna on the floor, and something in his expression cracked. "Get out," he said quietly. She scrambled out, nearly falling. Luca caught her, one arm wrapping around her waist, steadying her. He didn't look away from Donovan. "You okay?" he asked her. "Yes." "Go to the car. The first one. Don't look back." "Luca?" "Now, Sienna." She ran. Behind her, she heard Luca's voice, low and lethal. "Get out of the car, Donovan." "This was just business. You put your hands on her. You put her in a car against her will. You threatened her." Each sentence was sharper than the last. That stopped being business the second you decided she was leverage. Sienna reached the first car. A woman in a dark suit opened the door for her. Luca's assistant, Claire, her expression professionally blank. Sienna climbed in, her whole body shaking. Through the window, she watched Luca drag Donovan out of the SUV. Watched him slam Donovan against the side of the vehicle. Watched his fist connect with Donovan's face with brutal efficiency. Claire touched her arm. "Don't watch." But Sienna couldn't look away. Luca hit Donovan again, and again. There was nothing controlled about it, nothing calculated. It was pure rage, unleashed. One of Luca's men stepped forward, saying something Sienna couldn't hear. Luca paused, breathing hard, his knuckles bloody. He said something back, sharp, final. Then he turned and walked toward the car. Sienna's door opened. Luca slid in beside her, his suit jacket torn, blood on his shirt. Some of it was his. Most of it probably wasn't. "Drive," he told Claire. The car pulled away. Sienna looked back. Donovan was on the ground, surrounded by Luca's men. His own people had their hands up, clearly surrendering. "Is he dead?" Sienna whispered. "No, but he'll wish he was." Luca's voice was rough. I'm sorry I let this happen. I should have seen it coming. I should have." She kissed him. It was desperate, messy, her hands tangling in his hair while his wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. He tasted like blood and fury and fear. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Don't apologize," she said. "Just take me home." "My place or yours?" "Yours. I don't want to be alone." He nodded, his hand finding hers, squeezing tight. "You won't be." The penthouse felt different now. Not imposing, not cold, just safe. Luca led her inside, his hand never leaving hers. Claire had disappeared somewhere, probably to handle whatever cleanup was necessary after a multi-car chase and assault in broad daylight. "You should shower," Luca said. Get cleaned up. I'll find you something to wear. Sienna looked down. Her clothes were torn, dirty, from being shoved to the floor. She hadn't noticed until now. Okay. The bathroom was exactly as she remembered. Huge, luxurious, stocked with products that cost more than her rent. She stood under the hot water for a long time, letting it wash away the fear and adrenaline. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel, she found Luca sitting on the edge of his bed. He'd changed out of his ruined suit into sweatpants and a t-shirt. His knuckles were wrapped in white bandages. "How bad?" she asked, gesturing to his hands. "Bruised. Nothing broken." He looked up at her. "How are you?" "I don't know." She sat down beside him. "That was terrifying, violent, exactly what I told you my world looked like." "Yes." "And you're still here." "I'm still here." She took his bandaged hand, examining it carefully. "You beat him unconscious for me." "I wanted to do worse. My guys stopped me." "Good. Because killing him would have been satisfying, but ultimately stupid. He's more useful alive." Luca's jaw tightened. "He'll withdraw from the waterfront contract. He'll leave the city, and he'll never say your name again. I made that very clear." "How?" "You don't want to know. Stop saying that." She turned to face him fully. "I was there, Luca. I saw you drag him out of that car. I saw you hit him. I can't pretend I don't know what you're capable of." "No, I suppose you can't." He touched her face, gentle despite the violence still radiating off him. "Are you afraid of me?" She should be. She should be terrified of a man who solved problems with his fists, who commanded enough loyalty to stage a rescue operation in under an hour, who looked at her with eyes that promised both protection and destruction. "No," she said, "I'm not afraid of you." "Maybe you should be." "Why? Have you ever hurt someone who didn't deserve it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Yes, when I was younger, before I learned control. And now? Now I only hurt people who threaten what's mine." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "And you're mine, Sienna. Whether you want to be or not, whether it's smart or safe, you're mine, and anyone who touches you answers to me." The possessiveness in his voice should have set off alarms. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in her chest. "That's not healthy," she said. "I know. We barely know each other. I know that too. This is probably going to end badly. Probably." He leaned his forehead against hers. "But I don't care. I've spent my whole life being careful, being strategic, weighing every decision against potential consequences. And then I saw you helping that old woman, and something in me just broke. Or maybe it fixed. I don't know anymore." "Luca, I love you." He said it simply, like it was inevitable. "I know it's too soon. I know it's insane, but I love you, Sienna Hart. And watching Donovan put his hands on you today made me realize I'd burn down the entire city if it meant keeping you safe." Her breath caught. "You can't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because," her voice broke, "because I might believe you. Good. Believe me." He kissed her, soft and devastating. "Believe that I see you, that I want you, that I do terrible things to protect you." "I believe you." The words came out as a whisper. "And that terrifies me." "It should." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "But Sienna, you terrify me too." "How?" "Because you make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Safety, softness, a life that isn't just survival." His hand slid into her hair. "You make me want to be better. And I don't know if I can be, but I want to try." She kissed him again. Harder this time, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He responded instantly, his arms wrapping around her, lifting her into his lap like she weighed nothing. The towels started to slip. She didn't care. "Sienna." Her name was a warning, a question. "Don't stop," she said. "If we do this, I know what it means." "Do you?" She pulled back just enough to look at him. "It means I'm choosing you, all of you. The good parts and the terrifying parts. The penthouse and the violence, the man who pays my mother's medical bills, and the man who beats people unconscious in the street. That's a lot to choose." "I know." She traced the line of his jaw. "But I'm choosing it anyway." He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to something human. His hands were everywhere, her hair, her waist, her thighs, careful despite the desperation. When he laid her back on the bed, his weight settling over her, she felt something shift. This wasn't just attraction, it wasn't just chemistry. It was something deeper, more dangerous. It was commitment. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. The city glittered outside the windows, indifferent to the violence and fear and unexpected love that had unfolded within its borders. "I need to tell you something," Luca said quietly. Sienna tensed. "What?" "The money I gave you. For your mother's bills and your loans." "You mean the money you gave me without asking?" "Yes. That money." His chest rose and fell beneath her cheek. It wasn't just kindness, it was also strategy. She pushed up on one elbow, looking down at him. "Explain." "I knew Donovan was watching. I knew he'd see the payment and understand what it meant, that you were important to me, that you were a potential target." His eyes were steady on hers. "I did it anyway, because I wanted you free of that debt more than I cared about the risk." "So you used me as bait?" "No. I used myself. I made you visible to my enemies because I couldn't stand watching you struggle." His hand cupped her face. "It was selfish, stupid, and I'd do it again." She should be angry. She should feel manipulated, used. But looking at him, at the raw honesty in his expression, the fear that she'd walk away, she just felt tired. "You're right," she said. "That was stupid." "I know. And selfish. I know that too. But it worked. My mom's bills are paid. My loans are manageable. And I'm here, with you, instead of drowning in debt and misery." "Yes." She laid back down, resting her head on his chest again. "I should hate you for it." "Do you?" "No. But I should." His arms tightened around her. "I'll take should over do." They were quiet for a while. Sienna listened to his heartbeat, steady and strong, and tried to process everything that had happened. 12 hours ago, she'd been leaving work. Now she was naked in Luca Moretti's bed, having survived a kidnapping and confessed feelings she didn't fully understand. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you stay here. With me. Where I can protect you. I can't just move in with you." "Why not?" "Because I have an apartment, a job, a life that doesn't revolve around you. Quit the job, sublet the apartment. Your life revolves around survival right now. Let me give you something better." She lifted her head again. "You're serious?" "Completely." "Luca, I can't just—" "Why not? What's holding you to that life? A boss who humiliates you? Coworkers who mock you? An apartment with a leaky faucet in a neighborhood you hate?" His voice was intense. "I'm offering you a choice. A real one. Stay there, or stay here. With me." "That's not a choice, that's an ultimatum." "No. An ultimatum would be stay here or lose me." "I'm not saying that. I'm saying stay here and be with me. Or keep your apartment and be with me anyway. Either way, I'm not letting you go." "That's still controlling." "Maybe. But it's honest." He sat up, pulling her with him. "Sienna, I know I'm asking for a lot. I know this is fast and crazy and probably a mistake. But I don't care. I want you here. I want to wake up with you. I want to know you're safe. And if I say no, then I'll respect it. But I'll also hire security to watch your building. And I'll call you every night. And I'll show up at your office with lunch until your coworkers think I'm insane." Despite everything, she laughed. "You're ridiculous. I'm in love. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Not really." He kissed her forehead. "Think about it. You don't have to decide tonight." But she already knew what her answer would be. She'd spent her whole life being careful, being small, making safe choices that kept her afloat but never let her swim. And where had it gotten her? A job she hated, debt she couldn't escape, and a life that felt like someone else's. Luca was offering something different, something dangerous and beautiful and completely insane, but it was hers, her choice, her risk. "Okay," she said. He blinked. "Okay?" "I'll move in, temporarily, on a trial basis." She held up a hand before he could argue. "I keep my apartment for now. I give notice at work. properly with 2 weeks, and we figure this out as we go. Deal. He pulled her into a kiss that felt like sealing a contract. You won't regret this. I might, but I'll regret it while living in a penthouse with a man who loves me, so at least the scenery will be nice. He laughed, real and surprised. I'm going to remind you of that when you're complaining about my work schedule. And I'm going to remind you of this when you're complaining about my terrible taste in television. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the city lights casting shadows across the bed. Sienna's last thought before sleep took her was that she'd made a choice. Not a safe one, not a smart one, but for the first time in years it felt like hers. Morning came with soft light and the smell of coffee. Sienna woke to find Luca already up, standing by the window in pajama pants, talking on the phone in low, intense tones. She watched him for a moment, this complicated man who'd crashed into her life and refused to leave. He noticed her watching and ended the call. Good morning, he said. Is everything okay? Donovan's withdrawing from the contract. He's also leaving the city. My lawyer made it very clear what would happen if he didn't. What did your lawyer say? That I'd find him, and that next time my men wouldn't stop me. He said it casually, like discussing the weather. Coffee? Yes, and also therapy. We're going to need so much therapy. He smiled. I'll add it to the list. They spent the morning making plans. Sienna called her landlord, explained she'd be subletting, called her mother, made up a story about a roommate opportunity that was too good to pass up, called Richard Hendricks and gave her 2 weeks' notice, savoring the shock in his voice. Luca handled the logistics, movers for her furniture, cleaners for her apartment, lawyers to review her lease. He moved through it all with practiced efficiency, making everything seem simple. By afternoon, boxes were being packed. By evening, her small life was being transported into his large one. Sienna stood in her empty apartment one last time, looking at the space she'd called home for 3 years. It had never been much, but it had been hers. Luca appeared in the doorway. Ready? She turned to him. This man who'd seen her being humiliated and decided to intervene, who'd paid her debts without asking, who'd beaten a man unconscious for threatening her, who'd looked at her like she was worth protecting, worth loving, worth choosing. Yes, she said. I'm ready. They drove back to the penthouse together, and Sienna didn't look back. Living with Luca was nothing like Sienna expected. She'd imagined awkwardness, the friction of two strangers learning to share space. Instead, it felt easy in ways that scared her. He worked long hours but came home to her. She learned his routines, coffee at 6, phone calls on the balcony, the way he ran his hand through his hair when he was frustrated. He learned hers, her terrible reality TV habit, her need for silence in the mornings, the fact that she reorganized his kitchen 3 times before she felt like it made sense. 2 weeks became a month, then 2 months. Her last day at the law firm was unremarkable. Richard Hendricks accepted her resignation with obvious relief. Monica didn't say goodbye. Sienna cleaned out her desk, took one last look at the office that had made her feel small for years, and walked out without a backward glance. Luca was waiting outside in his car. How does it feel? He asked when she climbed in. Like I should be terrified, but I'm not. Good, because I have a proposition. She raised an eyebrow. Another one? I'm starting a foundation, community development, job training, housing assistance. I need someone to run it, someone who actually gives a damn about people instead of profit margins. He glanced at her. I want it to be you. Sienna stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a purpose, and a salary that's triple what Hendricks was paying you. He pulled into traffic. You don't have to answer now. Think about it. She thought about it for approximately 10 seconds. Yes. Yes? I spent 3 years working for a man who treated me like I was disposable. I'd like to spend the next 3 actually helping people who need it. She touched his hand on the gear shift. So yes, I'll run your foundation. His smile was genuine, unguarded. You're going to be incredible at it. I might fail. Then you'll fail doing something that matters. That's better than succeeding at something that doesn't. The foundation consumed her. Sienna threw herself into it with the same intensity she'd once directed at survival. She hired staff, developed programs, met with community leaders. Luca gave her complete autonomy, never questioning her decisions, never trying to control how she ran things. "You trust me," she said one night, surprised. They were in bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "Of course I trust you," Luca said. "With your money, your reputation, with everything." He kissed the top of her head. "You're the best person I know, Sienna. If I can't trust you, I can't trust anyone." She tilted her head to look at him. "I'm not that good." "You are. You just don't see it. I lied to my mother about where the money came from. I let you beat a man unconscious and didn't report it. I'm living with someone who's done illegal things and will probably do more. And yet you're still running a foundation that's helped 300 families find housing. You're still the person who stops to help strangers. You're still you." His hand cupped her face. "Good people make compromises, Sienna. That doesn't make them less good. It makes them human." She kissed him, slow and deep, trying to communicate what she couldn't quite articulate, that he'd changed her, that loving him had forced her to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about right and wrong, about safety and risk, that she didn't regret any of it. 3 months after she moved in, Luca came home with blood on his shirt again. Sienna was in the kitchen, reviewing grant applications, when she heard the door open. One look at his face told her something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. "Minor disagreement." He shrugged off his jacket. "It's handled." "That's not minor." She gestured to the blood. "That's a lot of blood. Most of it isn't mine." "Luca." He sighed, sinking onto a bar stool. "There was a situation at one of the construction sites, some guys trying to extort protection money. I explained why that was a bad idea. By bleeding on them. By making it clear that my sites are off limits." He looked at her, his expression carefully neutral. "Does this bother you?" "It should. She should hate seeing him come home like this, evidence of violence written across his clothes. But she'd learned over the months that Luca's world operated on different rules. Violence wasn't always wrong. Sometimes it was necessary. Sometimes it was the only language certain people understood." "Are you hurt?" she asked instead. "Bruised ribs, nothing serious." She set down her laptop and moved to stand between his knees, her hands gentle on his face. "Let me see." He lifted his shirt. The bruising was spectacular, purple and black spreading across his left side. "You need ice," she said. "I need you. You need ice first, then me." She got him ice, aspirin, and a glass of whiskey he didn't ask for but accepted gratefully. Then she sat beside him while he told her what had happened. The men who'd shown up demanding money, the fight that followed, the way he'd made sure they understood his territory was protected. "I'm never going to be safe," he said quietly. "There's always going to be someone testing boundaries, someone who thinks they can take what's mine." "I know." "And that doesn't scare you?" "It terrifies me, but walking away scares me more." She took his hand. "You're not getting rid of me that easily." He pulled her into his lap, careful of his ribs, and held her like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. "Marry me," he said. Sienna went still. "What?" "Marry me. For real this time. Not as a lie to save you from embarrassment. As a promise." Her heart was pounding. "Luca, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But I don't want to wait." He pulled back to look at her. "I want you to be my wife. Legally. Actually, I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours." "You're serious?" "Completely." She should say she needed time to think. They'd only been together 6 months. That wasn't long enough to make this kind of decision. But she'd learned that time was relative. She knew Luca better after 6 months than she'd known some people after 6 years. "Ask me properly," she said. He smiled, genuine, almost boyish. Then he stood, pulling her up with him, and dropped to one knee right there in his kitchen. "Sienna Hart," he said, "you walked into my life by accident and refused to leave even when you should have. You're stubborn, brilliant, kind in ways that terrify me. You see the worst parts of me and love me anyway. Will you marry me?" Tears were streaming down her face. "You don't have a ring. I'll buy you 10 rings, 20, whatever you want. I want you to stand up. Your ribs are hurt. I'm not standing up until you answer. That's manipulative." "Is it working?" She laughed through her tears. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you." He stood, wincing slightly, and kissed her like they had all the time in the world, and none of it mattered except this moment. Planning a wedding while running a foundation and living with a man whose business dealings occasionally involved violence turned out to be complicated. Sienna wanted something small. Luca wanted to give her everything. They compromised. Small ceremony, large reception, immediate family only for the vows, everyone else for the party after. Sienna's mother cried when she told her. "Are you sure about this? You've only known him 6 months." "I'm sure, Mom. He's very intense. I know. And wealthy. That's not why you're—" "No, that's not why." Sienna took her mother's hands. "I love him. He sees me. And he makes me feel like I can be more than I thought I was capable of." Her mother studied her face for a long moment. "You're happy." "I am." "Then that's all that matters." The wedding was 3 months later. Small ceremony in a chapel overlooking the harbor, with Sienna's mother and a handful of Luca's closest associates as witnesses. Sienna wore a simple white dress that made her feel beautiful without trying too hard. Luca wore a tuxedo and looked at her like she was the only person in the room. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Sienna half expected Donovan Cross to burst through the doors with a final revenge plot. Instead, there was just silence and sunlight, and Luca's hand warm in hers. "I do," she said when it was her turn. "I do," Luca echoed. And just like that, the lie from the gala became truth. The reception was excessive. 300 people in a ballroom, even more elaborate than the one where they'd met. Sienna recognized some faces from that night. Monica was conspicuously absent. Richard Hendricks was there, looking uncomfortable, probably attending out of professional obligation. Luca kept her close all night, his hand at her waist, introducing her to business partners and old friends with obvious pride. Sienna played the role she'd never expected to fill: powerful man's wife, foundation director, someone people noticed instead of overlooked. "How does it feel?" Claire asked during a quiet moment. Luca's assistant had become something like a friend over the months. "Surreal, like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life." "It's your life now." "I know. That's the surreal part." Claire smiled. "He's different with you, softer, like he remembers how to be human instead of just effective." "Is that good?" "It's necessary. Men like Luca, they burn out if they don't have something to come home to. Someone who reminds them why they're building empires in the first place." Sienna watched Luca across the room, deep in conversation with someone who looked vaguely criminal. He glanced up, caught her eye, and smiled. "I hope I'm enough," Sienna said quietly. "You are. Trust me." The party lasted until midnight. When it finally ended, Luca swept Sienna into his arms, literally lifted her off her feet, and carried her to the car while she laughed and protested that she could walk. "Not tonight," he said. "Tonight you let me do the ridiculous romantic thing." They drove to the penthouse. Their penthouse now, officially. Sienna had stopped thinking of it as his space months ago. Her books were on his shelves. Her terrible coffee maker sat next to his expensive espresso machine. Her life had tangled with his until separating them would require cutting. Inside, Luca set her down carefully, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like champagne and promise. "Mrs. Moretti," he murmured against her lips. "That's going to take getting used to. You have the rest of your life." They made love slowly, carefully, like they were learning each other all over again. Afterward, lying tangled together with the city lights painting patterns on the walls, Sienna felt something settle in her chest. Not happiness exactly, something quieter, something that felt like home. "Tell me something," Luca said into the darkness. "What?" "Do you regret it? Any of it?" She thought about the question. Did she regret letting him claim her as his wife at that gala? Regret accepting his help with her mother's bills? Regret moving in, taking the job, marrying him? "No," she said. "I don't regret it, but I'm also not naive enough to think it's over." "What do you mean?" "Your world doesn't stop being dangerous just because we're married. There will be more Donovans, more threats, more nights when you come home bleeding." "Yes, there will be. And I'm choosing it anyway. That's what scares me." She turned to look at him. "I used to think I knew who I was. Someone careful, someone who played it safe. But I fell in love with you, and now I'm someone who accepts violence as part of the package. What does that make me?" "Human," Complicated. Real. His hand found hers in the darkness. You're not accepting violence, Sienna. You're accepting that the world is messy, and sometimes good people have to make hard choices. That's different, is it? Yes, because you're not becoming me. You're staying you, kind, stubborn, determined to help people, while loving someone who operates differently. That doesn't corrupt you. It just means you see the whole picture instead of just the pretty parts. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that loving Luca didn't compromise her fundamental goodness. But she'd learned that morality was more complicated than she'd once thought. That good people did questionable things. That love required acceptance of flaws, contradictions, darkness. I love you, she said, even the parts that scare me. I love you too, especially the parts that challenge me. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two imperfect people who'd found something perfect in their imperfection. The first year of marriage wasn't easy. Luca's work took him away for days at a time. The foundation faced budget issues, staffing problems, community resistance. They fought about his controlling tendencies, her stubborn independence, the way he made decisions without consulting her and she shut down instead of communicating. But they always came back to each other. After a particularly bad fight about Luca hiring security to follow her without asking, Sienna locked herself in the bedroom for 6 hours. When she finally emerged, he was sitting on the couch, looking wrecked. I'm sorry, he said immediately. You were right. I should have asked. You think you're protecting me, but you're suffocating me. I know. I'm trying to do better. Try harder. She sat beside him, exhausted. I'm not fragile, Luca. I don't need to be wrapped in bubble wrap. I know you're not fragile. That's not why I do it. Then why? Because losing you would destroy me. And I'm terrified that someday someone will take you from me the way I've taken things from other people. That's karma. That's justice. His voice cracked, and I can't let that happen. She understood then. His overprotection wasn't about controlling her. It was about fear. The bone-deep terror that the violence he'd dealt out would eventually come back to claim what he loved most. You can't protect me from everything, she said gently. Life doesn't work that way. I can try. And I can live. Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. She took his face in her hands. But you have to trust me to make my own choices, even when they scare you. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They learned to compromise. He stopped hiring security without telling her. She agreed to check in when she was working late. He backed off on controlling where she went. She acknowledged that some of his caution was legitimate. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. A year and a half after the wedding, Sienna found out she was pregnant. She stared at the test for 5 full minutes, her hands shaking. She'd been on birth control. They'd been careful. But apparently the universe had other plans. When Luca came home that night, she was sitting on the bathroom floor, the test beside her. He took one look at her face and dropped to his knees. What's wrong? She held up the test. His eyes widened. You're, pregnant. Yes. How do you feel about that? Terrified, excited, completely unprepared. She laughed shakily. How do you feel about it? He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Like my life just got infinitely more complicated and infinitely better at the same time. So terrified and excited? Exactly. They sat on the bathroom floor for a long time, holding each other, processing the reality that their complicated, messy, beautiful life was about to get even more so. The pregnancy was hard. Sienna had morning sickness that lasted all day. Her body changed in ways that made her feel alien. Luca hovered, which made her want to scream, but he also rubbed her feet without being asked and brought her ginger tea at 3 in the morning. I'm sorry, she said one night when the nausea was particularly bad. For what? For being miserable. For complaining. For... Stop. He kissed her forehead. You're growing a human. You're allowed to be miserable. I thought I'd be one of those glowing pregnant women. You are glowing. You're just also nauseated. Both can be true. She loved him more in those moments than in any grand gesture. When he held her hair while she threw up. When he assembled the crib at 2 in the morning because she couldn't sleep. When he read parenting books with the same intensity he brought to business negotiations. Their daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in early spring. 8 pounds, healthy lungs, dark hair like her father. They named her Elena, after Luca's mother who'd died when he was young. Holding her for the first time, Sienna felt everything shift. This tiny person was theirs, created from love and compromise, and two people who'd crashed into each other's lives and refused to leave. Luca cried when he held Elena, actual tears running down his face, his expression stunned. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's ours," Sienna corrected. Same thing. Parenthood transformed them. Luca became obsessed with safety in new ways, installing cameras, hiring the best nanny, researching every possible danger. Sienna learned to function on 3 hours of sleep while running a foundation and keeping a tiny human alive. They fought less. Or maybe they just fought differently. Quick disagreements about feeding schedules and sleep training that resolved faster because neither of them had the energy for prolonged conflict. On Elena's first birthday, they threw a small party in the penthouse. Sienna's mother was there, healthier than she'd been in years. Claire brought an elaborate cake. A handful of close friends celebrated with them. Watching Luca play with their daughter, this dangerous man reduced to silly faces and baby talk, Sienna felt something profound. Not happiness exactly, something deeper. Gratitude, maybe, or peace. "What are you thinking?" Luca asked, catching her watching. "That my life is nothing like I planned, and I'm glad." "No regrets?" "Not a single one." He crossed the room and kissed her, Elena giggling between them. 2 years after Elena's birth, the foundation was thriving. They'd helped over 1,000 families. Sienna had a staff of 20 and a waiting list of people who needed assistance. She worked from home most days, balancing conference calls with diaper changes, grant writing with toddler meltdowns. Luca's business had grown too. He distanced himself from the shadier elements, focusing on legitimate development. There were still moments, situations that required the kind of handling he was good at, but they were rarer. "I'm getting old," he said one night. They were in bed, Elena asleep in the next room, the monitor broadcasting her soft breathing. "You're 37, Sienna said. "That's not old. I'm tired. Tired of always watching my back. Tired of solving problems with threats." He turned to look at her. "I want to be boring. Is that strange?" "No, it's human. I keep thinking about Elena growing up, about what she'll think when she learns what I've done, who I've been. She'll think you're her father and that you love her." Sienna touched his face. "The rest is details. Important details. Maybe, but not the only details." She paused. "You're not the same person you were when we met. You've changed. Because of you. Because you chose to. I just gave you a reason." He pulled her closer, his hand resting on her stomach where their second child, unplanned, surprising, welcome, was growing. "I'm going to be better," he said. "For them. For you. You're already good enough." "Not yet. But I will be." 5 years after the gala where everything started, Sienna stood in the same ballroom. Different charity, different cause, but the same glittering excess. This time, she wasn't wearing the wrong dress. She wore designer, expensive, tailored perfectly to her post-pregnancy body. Luca stood beside her, his hand at her waist, introducing her to donors and politicians. Elena was home with the nanny. Their son, Marco, was 6 months old and sleeping through the night more often than not. Across the room, Sienna spotted Monica. Older now, harder around the edges. Their eyes met. Monica looked away first. "Do you want to go say hello?" Luca asked, noticing. "No, I have nothing to say to her." "Not even I told you so?" Sienna smiled. "Especially not that." Because the truth was, she didn't need Monica to know she'd won. She didn't need Richard Hendricks to see how far she'd come. She didn't need anyone's validation except her own. She'd built a life. Not a perfect one. Not a safe one. But hers. The gala ended early for them. Elena had called crying, wanting her parents. They left the ballroom hand in hand, Luca making excuses to disappointed donors, Sienna not caring what anyone thought. In the car, Luca took her hand. 5 years ago, I lied and called you my wife in this same building. I remember. Did you ever think we'd actually end up here? No. I thought you were insane and dangerous and completely wrong for me. And now I think you're still insane and dangerous, but somehow exactly right. She squeezed his hand. We're a mess, Luca. We fight. We disagree. You still make decisions without asking me sometimes, and I still shut down instead of communicating. But we're our mess, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. He lifted her hand to his lips. I love you, Sienna Moretti. I love you too. Even when you're impossible. Especially when I'm impossible. They drove home to their children, their complicated life, their imperfect love. And Sienna realized that 5 years ago, standing in that ballroom being humiliated, she would never have believed this was possible. A life built on a lie that became truth. A love forged in violence and softened by time. A man who'd seen her at her lowest and decided she deserved better. A woman who'd learned that safety wasn't the same as living. They weren't a fairy tale. They were real, messy and complicated and human. But they were also proof that sometimes the best things in life came from the worst moments. That courage meant choosing love even when it was dangerous. That transformation was possible when two people decided they were worth the work. Elena ran to meet them at the door, her face bright with joy. Marco was awake in his crib, making sounds that weren't quite words yet. Luca swept Elena into his arms while Sienna picked up their son. This was her life now. Not the one she'd planned. Not the one she'd imagined during those miserable years of debt and degradation. Something infinitely better. And standing there, surrounded by noise and love and chaos, Sienna understood the truth she'd been avoiding for 5 years. She hadn't been rescued that night at the gala. She'd been seen. And being seen, truly, completely, with all her flaws and fears, had given her permission to see herself, to become someone who didn't just survive, but lived. That was the real victory. Not the penthouse or the money or even the love story. It was the woman she'd become. The one who'd stopped making herself small. Who'd learned that being safe meant nothing if you weren't also alive. Who'd taken a lie and turned it into the most honest thing she'd ever known. Mama, Elena said, tugging on her sleeve. Tell me the story. Which story? How you and Daddy met. Luca caught Sienna's eye over their daughter's head, his expression soft with memory. Well, Sienna began, it started with a dress that was all wrong, and a man who decided to tell the biggest lie of his life. Was it a bad lie? Elena asked. Sienna looked at Luca, at Marco in her arms, at the life they'd built from that single impulsive moment. No, baby, she said. It was the best lie anyone ever told. And she meant every word.